Well, good day. I'd like to introduce the team. Welcome to our workshop on PTSD. We're going to conduct this as a panel, looking at this subject as it has never been looked at before by anyone. However, it will be deeply substantiated by biblical and scientific and psychiatric investigation. I'm Dr. Henry Wright. I'm the senior pastor of Hope of the Generations Church and the president of Be in Health. I have a master's degree in Christian ministry, a doctorate in Christian therapeutic counseling with honors, and I head up this team.
I am Pastor Anita Hill, and I have a background in a Bachelor of Science in Education, Master's in Social Work, EEG technician, and nurse.
And my name is Lavinda Summers, and I have a master's degree in Christian counseling / social work, and I'm so happy to be here.
Well, team, let's go to work.
Alrighty.
One of the things that I would like to do as we start our workshop is to go over the subject matter quickly. For those of you that are here as our audience and those that are watching this online streaming, or those that are partaking of this later by video, we will define what PTSD is, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. We'll get into that. We're also going to look at some statistics. It'll amaze you to find out this is not a vet issue alone, as many people think it is. Some of the causative action that produces it. We're going to look at some of your memory, your long-term memory, how that is, your short-term memory. We're going to take a look at pathways of thought, how thought travels, and even the biological components that are used to assimilate who you really are in deductive reasoning, cognition, and thought process. We'll open up another subject, understanding the spirit and the soul and the body. If you do not consider that we're a spirit, then we're in trouble, period. Because if you're not a spirit being, all you are is an animal, as zoologists say you are, which is incorrect. You are a spirit, you have a soul, and you live in a body. We're going to talk about the limbic system. We're going to talk about the mind-body connection. Could I insert something called the spirit-soul-body connection? We're going to take a look at some of the Jungian and Freudian concepts of psychotherapy. We'll take a look and define what is the conscious, what is the subconscious, what is the unconscious, and what is the collective unconscious. Can thoughts come from someplace other than your own mind? We're going to talk about that. We're going to also discuss some of the PTSD therapies that are being offered by government and by therapists and by psychiatry and psychologists, and even the Christianized versions and as to their approach. We will also begin to delve into something called our childhood. Does our childhood and the piece of it have anything to do with how we assimilate fear as adults? You'll find it big. How about in utero? How about inherited genetics? How about familial? How about thought that is inherited? That's a subject that will stir people up. Can your thoughts be inherited? We'll find out a lot about genetics, not just genetic mutation, but the new field of epigenetics. What is that? Oh, we'll talk about it. What is epigenetics? It's really interesting. We're going to talk about birth experiences. We're going to talk about cortisol imprint. We're going to talk about memory and trauma, stress door points. PTSD is just one of those anxiety disorders. So why don't we plan on getting 91 or 85 Or how about 100% success? I read somewhere, I think it was the ancient writings, it's called the Bible, that he who the Son sets free is free indeed. You know what the Word says? This is the standard of everything we believe. Dearly beloved, I wish above all things that you prosper and be in health, even as where's your soul? Right here between your ears. Even as your soul prospers. So God wants you to be happy, to be well, to be sane. That's a bonus. And to be healthy. That is the promise, and that is the objective of our journey, is it not? Also, back in our tables back here, you might want to pick up a testimony that we printed back in 2015, actually recently, October, November, the story of John Aldridge out of Texas and his dramatic healing a few years ago of PTSD. John is totally well today. When I met him, he was a basket case. And he came to the For My Life program, and he disappeared on Friday. We couldn't find him. I had met him at a conference in Mesquite, Texas, and I invited him to come because he was, I don't know how many psychiatric drugs he was on, like maybe 20 or 30. And he was a chemical zombie. And I invited him to come to For My Life program, and he came, and he disappeared. And we were looking for him over the weekend. He went home. And when we caught up with him and said, "Why did you leave? You didn't finish the program." He said, "I heard enough. I understand my problem. I understand what I need to do about it. Why listen to anything more? I'm going to go home and take ownership of my life." I think that's what God wants us to do, is rather than being stagnant victims of ourselves or others, we take ownership of our life. If you don't take ownership of your life, you're not faithing. You're fearing.
It's not dependent on whether or not you pray for me or you pray for me. It's dependent upon me and my relationship with the Father.
Everybody's waiting. You know, I think people think God's another drug that we can be zapped with or something and mysteriously get well, and even though God does heal people instantly, you know, I've learned that God wants us to change direction, and He wants to work with us.
Praise the Lord. I was praying about this conference, and when you were mentioning the soul and where is it located, in Psalms 23, it just sort of jumped out at me. He leadeth me by still waters and restoreth my soul. A promise of God.
Well, in this conference, we're going to give you some ideas how you can take ownership of your spirit man. You can take ownership of your soul. And when you do, your body will be happy. Your bodies are dysfunctional because the rest of you is dysfunctional. So we'd like to bring you into focus to be functional, spirit and soul, and then your bodies will rejoice and begin to heal. Wouldn't that be a wonderful benefit? You see, everybody today is chasing symptoms. You'll find out here, we get into some of the PTSD therapies that are being offered. They're all chasing symptoms. Here at Be in Health, we don't chase symptoms. We want to know what causes the symptoms. So we want to know the etiology. We want to know this pathway that produces the problem. Wouldn't it, rather than chasing symptoms, don't you think it'd be best to find out what causes the symptoms? And then get rid of what's causing the problem of the symptoms? I think that would be a benefit, rather than going from healing to healing and therapy to therapy and drug to drug and this and that and this and that. Why don't we just deal with it? God wants to work with you. Well, let's get on into our workshop. What is PTSD? Well, it defines itself. Post-traumatic stress. So what this is would be an event that the body is responding to in the soul of the body that is after a stress event, trauma event, or stressor that produces something that is not good, and that's called a disorder. Now, one of the things I would like to say to you is that PTSD is not truly a disease. You have to be careful how they label you. Not every disorder is a disease. It could be known as a syndrome. A syndrome is something involving thought, but usually people associate PTSD with war. I want to say something to you. Not everyone that goes to war gets PTSD. Not everybody that's exposed to a traumatic event gets PTSD.